In 2007, Christina Yovich was named one of the most charming women in Switzerland in the Miss Switzerland competition. However, 17 years later, her name made headlines again, but this time for the most tragic reasons. The beginning of this story was marked by a phone call from the kindergarten where Christina's children attended. The woman did not come to pick them up after classes, which greatly worried her parents, who were shocked by their daughter's sudden disappearance. Strangely, Christina's husband, it seemed, was not at all concerned about the situation. Since less than a day had passed since Christina's disappearance, the law enforcement authorities were not in a hurry to intervene. Then Christina's father decided to act on his own and began searching the house. What he found turned out to be truly horrifying. Switzerland is a country located in the heart of Europe, surrounded by mountains, lakes, picturesque villages, and high alpine peaks. Here, it seems, there are more ski resorts and hiking trails than residents. Despite this, about 9 million people call this country their home. The capital of Switzerland is the city of Bern, and the most populous is Zurich. If you drive about an hour north of Bern or an hour west of Zurich, you can find the charming city of Basel, located right on the border with France and Germany. Basel is an amazing place for walks, with Gothic cathedrals, red sandstone buildings, and the Rhine River flowing through the heart of the city. Southwest of Basel is a small commune called Bingen. It was here, in the early hours of February 13, 2024, that a horrific discovery was made, which shook the entire town. It all started the day before, when Christina's grandmother and grandfather received a disturbing call from their granddaughter's kindergarten. Their daughter, Christina, a former model and successful entrepreneur, did not pick up her children after their classes. This seemed very strange, as she adored her little ones and was an extremely responsible mother. The situation became even more suspicious, as the children's father also did not answer the calls. After picking up the grandchildren from the kindergarten, the grandmother and grandfather returned to the family home, where they found Marco, Christina's husband, but the woman herself was not there. The most bizarre thing was that Marco seemed completely calm, as if nothing had happened. He stated that he did not know where his wife was and offered her father a drink. For several hours, the man behaved as if everything was fine, and even seemed rather cheerful. He conversed with Christina's parents as if it were an ordinary day, and then bid farewell to the children, wished them good night, and sent them to bed. However, Christina's father was not going to simply leave everything as it was. He was deeply concerned about the fate of his daughter. Instead of leaving the house and going home, the man decided to carefully inspect the entire premises. The fact is that Christina and Marco lived in a prestigious estate in Bingen. It was a rather large manor with many rooms and nooks, so it took Christina's father some time to survey the entire house and then go out to the yard. Eventually, he descended to the laundry room, located in the basement of the house. This room more resembled an isolated bunker, with thick concrete walls and steel doors that closed it off. When Christina's father finally went inside, he noticed several large garbage bags lying in the corner of the room. From one of them, to his incredible horror, a strand of light hair was protruding. Curiosity took over. Unfortunately, the bag contained the head of his daughter. After opening the package and realizing what had happened, the man ran out of the house, screaming and calling for help. Soon after, the distraught father called the police to report that his daughter had been brutally murdered and dismembered. The authorities arrived at the scene some time later. From the very beginning, it was clear that Christina Yovich was dead, and it also became apparent that her husband, most likely, was guilty of this crime. Christina was an unusual person, clearly different from the average 9-to-5 worker. Her career path was one of the most interesting, and the transition from one success to another was inspiring. Although Christina was born and raised in Bingen and spent most of her life in Bern, she had Serbian roots thanks to her parents. As the woman grew older, in 2003 she won the Miss Northwest Switzerland competition, and in 2007 she became a finalist in the Miss Switzerland competition. In addition, she received other awards in this field. It can be said with confidence that Christina was the embodiment of classic beauty. However, Christina's talents were not limited to just outward beauty. Her potential was even more revealed after the end of her runway career. After completing her modeling path as she matured, Christina started her own business. She trained other women in the art of runway walking for participation in famous fashion shows and runway performances. Moreover, she helped newcomers prepare for beauty pageants and castings. But even this was not enough, as Christina was an incredibly versatile personality. In parallel, she worked as an IT consultant at Google, while her own business was gradually gaining momentum. Her Instagram page called Kuchikoch positioned her as an expert in high heels, a motivator, an entrepreneur, and a mother. Christina conducted personal training sessions with clients, organized master classes on learning to walk in high heels, and supported a company that promoted self-confidence, femininity, and a positive attitude towards one's own body. On her website, she described herself as a model, a Google recruiter, a Miss Switzerland finalist, the manager of the same competition, and a runway walk coach. Her clients included such well-known companies as Mercedes-Benz, HP, and Philips. In general, she transformed her modeling career into the path of a successful coach, inspiring the next generation of models. In addition, she helped Miss Switzerland contestants follow in her footsteps and taught business women to feel confident in their professional lives. In her personal life, Christina was a strong woman who dedicated herself to supporting and inspiring other women. But in addition to her career as a model, entrepreneur, and consultant, Christina was a loving wife and proud mother of 2 little daughters. Their names were Vera Kla, born in 2020, and Kira Safi, born in 2021. Judging by the numerous photos on the internet, it was clear how much she adored her family. Christina was a kind and welcoming person, just as beautiful on the inside as on the outside. From the outside, she seemed confident, intelligent, disciplined, and incredibly devoted to her family. However, while many people evoked only positive emotions in Christina, the same cannot be said about her husband. He also had friends, and Christina loved him. But many of her close ones saw in him a hot-tempered, capricious man. Marco Reibin was 41 years old. He was 3 years older than Christina. Marco was considered a respected leader in the field of change management in the Basel area. And in many ways, this was due to his father, who essentially ensured his future as a millionaire and lawyer. Before becoming a change management leader, Marco served as an officer in the Swiss Armed Forces, studied at the University of St. Gallen, and then, by rumor, continued his education at Stanford University. In addition, Marco ran his own business related to lean and agile methodologies, as well as continuous improvement. On his LinkedIn page, Marco described himself as a goal-driven entrepreneur. According to him, life is about people and their communication. Even judging by his posts on Twitter, Marco was an incredibly boring person. His life seemed as dull as the corporate world games in which he was immersed. In any case, in 2017, Marco and Christina got married. Their wedding was beautiful and took place in a castle overlooking the hills and fields. Later, they had 2 wonderful daughters. From the outside, everything seemed perfect, at least as it appeared on social media. On the internet, you can find many photographs in which they seem madly in love, picnics in the park, hugs on the floor, joint selfies at home, and vacations abroad. It was as if they had an ideal life, but behind closed doors, everything was not so simple. Christina's friends were extremely dissatisfied with Marco's behavior, especially in the last months before her death. One of her friends recalled that the couple was going through a crisis that had lasted for several months. The police were even called to their house after the situation escalated into violence. Based on the testimony of her friends, it became known that Marco had become obsessed with the children. He saw them as an ideal project, and he considered Christina to be just an obstacle. Marco put himself above everyone else, and this was especially evident on the children's birthdays, when he divided the guests into 2 camps. His family and her family celebrated separately. But neither Christina nor her family had any idea how dark a side Marco had. One of his former girlfriends told the prosecutor that Marco had repeatedly subjected her to brutal violence. And this continued until April 2016, just before he met Christina. Christina's ex-partner had already testified against him, recalling his terrible outbursts of anger. Once he ran over her leg with a car, and another time he threatened to throw her out of the car on the way home. He is also alleged to have grabbed her by the neck and forcefully pressed her against the wall. In the heat of arguments, Marco often lost control, which led to blows or strangulation attempts. And, as it turned out, Christina was not his first victim. Unaware of all this, Christina continued to post wonderful photos on social media, being convinced that Marco was the perfect husband who would never harm her. In old posts, she called him "my love" and proudly announced her second pregnancy. Just a few months before the tragedy, she shared a photo of her family with the caption, "My world," and the irony is that it was Marco who destroyed this world. Despite the fundamental principle of the presumption of innocence that we are obliged to respect, the available evidence and testimony against Marco speak for themselves. However, what really happened to Christina? Although the case has not yet been heard in court, we can share the information known at this time. Initially, Marco denied involvement in Christina's murder. He claimed that he found her body in the laundry room and in a state of panic dismembered it. However, realizing the weight of the evidence that incriminated him, he confessed to the murder, although he tried to justify himself, claiming that Christina allegedly attacked him with a knife. However, the examination refuted this version of events. The traces on her neck clearly indicated that the woman was strangled. But that's not all. The autopsy showed that Christina was beheaded using a hacksaw, knife, and garden shears. Marco also dislocated her hip joints and then completely dismembered the body. Moreover, during the dismemberment process, Marco watched videos on YouTube from his iPhone, but refuses to provide the password, which is likely an attempt to hide something. The most horrific thing was that Marco cut out only one organ, Christina's uterus, which prompted experts to conclude that the suspect might have a mental disorder. In addition, he ground some body parts in a powerful industrial blender, and dissolved others in a chemical solution. The fragments of the body that did not succumb to these two gruesome methods of destruction showed signs of blunt trauma inflicted before Christina's death. Among them were cuts on the cheek, chin, and nose, bruises on the leg and foot, as well as on the shoulder blades and the back of the head. A strand of hair had also been pulled out. Most of these horrific actions were committed in the laundry room, as evidenced by the traces and physical evidence found at the crime scene. Marco spent several hours working on his wife's body before returning to his usual life as if nothing had happened. He even looked Christina's father in the eye, had a drink with him, and assured him that Christina would soon return. Christina's father was persistent and deeply concerned. After a thorough search of the house, he came across the head of his daughter, which was probably the worst finding imaginable. In the interval between this gruesome discovery and the arrival of the police, Christina's father confronted Marco, who seemed stunned that his secret had been uncovered so quickly. And although it sounds incredible, during his arrest, Marco still tried to convince Christina's parents that they would see her again, which only emphasizes his complete lack of remorse and loss of touch with reality. What exactly drove Marco to murder his wife remains a mystery. Without the involvement of experts, one can only speculate and make too many assumptions. However, we have a confession, and we know from Christina's friends that she was planning to divorce Marco. Perhaps this is what drove him to the brink of madness. It is strange that after his arrest, Marco tried to obtain release on bail through the Court of Compulsory Measures in Basel. After the refusal, he appealed to the cantonal court, where he was also denied. Finally, he appealed to the federal court, but there too fortune did not smile upon him. According to the results of the investigation, Marco seems to have signs of a mental disorder. Experts also note a high level of criminal energy, a complete lack of empathy, and cold-bloodedness. His attempts to hide his wife's death and then behave as if nothing had happened in front of her father indicate clear and sociopathic traits. One of his friends noted that Marco felt no remorse. How crazy does one have to be to not show even a drop of emotion? There is no doubt that Marco will face trial for Christina's murder. The only question is whether he will be found guilty and what sentence he will receive. In Switzerland, the death penalty is prohibited, but for murder, a minimum sentence of 10 years and up to life imprisonment is provided. However, even a life sentence allows for the possibility of parole after 15 years. So, unfortunately, there is a chance that Marco may one day return to society. Moreover, Christina's family is now forced to fight for custody of her children. Her parents and sister have united to provide the girls with a safe and loving home. But Marco's sister also claims custody, arguing that Christina's parents are too old to care for them. This has escalated into a serious legal battle, with Marco's millionaire father and his lawyers assisting his sister. For Christina's family, this is an extremely exhausting struggle. Marco's actions should deprive him of any rights to the children. Christina's children deserve to grow up in a home where they will not be lied to about who their mother was and what happened to her. Moreover, Christina's family has already endured too much pain and loss. Losing grandchildren after the death of their daughter is just too much. Christina was a strong, self-confident, and extraordinary woman. She always radiated energy and new ideas, always supported her friends and family, and always listened. Despite her leadership qualities, she was a caring and loving mother, completely devoted to her children. Now these children have to grow up without their amazing mother. 8 months have passed since the tragic day when Christina's life was cut short. The house where life once flourished now stands empty and uninviting. The furniture may still be inside, but the windows are dark, and an oppressive silence hangs in the air. Flowers have been left at the doorstep in memory of the mistress, and in the backyard, where the children's laughter once rang out and the smell of grilled meat from the barbecue lingered, weeds now thrive. Christina's final resting place is always crowded. Her grave is drowning in flowers, and a photograph of the smiling woman adorns the gravestone. 2 crosses laid out with stone hearts and children's drawings all testify to the fact that Christina was sincerely loved and deeply missed. Her friend in an interview noted that one should not trust the perfect picture, as a terrible truth may be hidden behind it. It is important to be attentive not only to oneself, but also to those around. Christina's life was cut short too early and unfairly. She deserved a happy future, but fate had other plans. However, her strength of spirit, boundless love, and selflessness will forever remain in the hearts of her loved ones, friends, and children who will grow up with the memory of their incredible mother. This story is a painful reminder of the fragility of human life and the importance of fighting domestic violence. Because behind the perfect facade, beautiful social media photos, and smiling faces, a horrific reality may be hiding. Despite all the suffering and loss, life goes on. Christina's relatives do not give up, as they know they must fight for the truth and a worthy future for her children. This tragedy has shown that love and strength can withstand even the most terrible trials. And although Marco tried to destroy his family, he failed to break the unbreakable spirit of Christina and her loved ones. This story is not yet fully written, as the lives of Christina's daughters are just beginning. Although they are now experiencing the pain of loss, there are people around them who are ready to surround them with care and love. Perhaps one day, when the girls grow up, they will learn the whole truth. But they will also remember that their mother was not just a victim, but an embodiment of strength, love, and beauty that cannot be erased from memory. Let Christina's name become a symbol of the fact that even in the darkest times, a ray of light and hope can be found. And the main thing is not how her death occurred, but how her life was. A life that left a bright trail that will forever remain in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Until next time, friends.